Welcome back, guys. It's Anthony. As the days keep moving forward and countries continue tightening up travel and gatherings, even today Trump just announced that he'd like to restrict gatherings to 10 people or less, the markets keep going down further and further. Now this has all the hallmarks of a recession in the making, and that's something that I really want to discuss because I've seen a lot of people on social media talking about how the Fed just slashed interest rates to 0%, or they're injecting hundreds of billions of dollars into the economy, but they just post a headline and then move on. I'm not sure how many people actually know what these things mean for our economy as a whole, and I'd love to be able to talk about that over the coming weeks since we are continuing to move further and further towards a recession, so it would seem. Now, if you don't know, a recession basically means a downturn in GDP over 2 quarters. We have a little bit of time until we get there, just based off of what the rules for recessions are, but it seems like that's the direction that we're heading. Now, this channel is all about you understanding and implementing good financial principles that allow you to live a fun and fulfilling life now and be able to plan for that for life for your whole entire future. But if I'm honest, that seems a little bit scary at the moment. I'm a little uneasy myself. Even with no consumer debt, having 3 months of emergency expenses saved up, my wife and I both work a 9 to 5 and we rely on that income. The thought of another recession is kind of scary, but at the same time I understand that it's a great opportunity to capitalize on dampened markets since I have a long-term view and I'm not going to sell my securities for decades, 30, 40 years. But my lizard brain is in freak-out mode. And so I want to sell everything and just kind of move into a shed in the middle of nowhere like a little hermit and not worry about expenses, not worry about money. But the rational side of me, who likes living in a society and having friends who actually want to hang out with him, likes the idea of this market being a good opportunity to move forward well in our personal financial situation. So we're going to lend ourselves to the rational side of things and stay calm. We're going to be alert, but not anxious. There's a Dr. Mike, if you've watched any of his videos. I've been keeping up with him because he's giving some good opinions on the coronavirus, but he always says alert, not anxious about health things. But I'm going to say that now about personal financial things, but don't sue me, Dr. Mike. And it's your rational brain that I want to speak to today and for the next few weeks in a series of shorter videos that I want to call Recessionomics 101. If you can see that on the board over there, got the little hat for graduation. That's a cap. I don't know why I call it a hat. The better we understand the times that we're in, the better, more educated decisions we're going to be able to make about our own personal financial situation. Now, I know you might be scared, and I'm a little anxious as well, but I want to take these high-level economic concepts that the news is talking about, that economists are talking about, that really kind of go over most consumers' heads, and even mine for the longest time, and I want to be able to kind of present them in a way that's going to be understandable as well as practical to what that's going to mean for your daily life and what it might mean for our economy moving forward and how you should be able to plan for that. I'm going to be posting Recessionomics 101 videos throughout the weeks on my channel. I'm still going to post a normal video on Saturday that's going to be a little bit different than the Recessionomics 101 videos. It's not going to be so much high-level academic economic concepts. It's just going to be more fun content or less topical to exactly where we are right now. If you're not already subscribed, hit the subscribe button below or in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. So in this first episode of Recessionomics 101, I want to go over a list of video topics that I'd like to go through over the coming weeks. This is not going to be an exhaustive list. As I continue to study more about these things and as things continue to unfold, I'm sure this is going to be amended in multiple ways. And if you have any suggestions, please drop it in the comments below or shoot me a DM on Instagram at Anthony Bodanza and I'll make sure to make a video about it. That's one of the luxuries of having a smaller channel like mine, is that I get to interact with you guys on a more personal basis, and so any single video that you guys would recommend that I make, I'm going to do it for sure. So after I give the list of the videos that I've already curated, I'm actually going to be talking about the first topic today, which is money supply. Here are some of the ideas that I have already for what I should cover in this series. Monetary policy, quantitative easing, the federal funds rate, mortgage-backed securities, US Treasuries, bonds in general, inflation, deflation, stagflation, what the differences are, what causes them, financial or asset bubbles, the Federal Reserve discount rate, a liquidity trap, yield curves, black swan events, other things like that. And if there's something else that you want covered, like I said, just shoot it to me in the comments or DM on Anthony at Anthony Bodanza on Instagram. So today's video is going to be about money supply. And we're going to do this a little bit whiteboard finance style. Got my little whiteboard here, so I hope Marco doesn't get too angry. So money supply, also known as money stock, is basically the circulation of currency overall in an economy. Now the reason I'm talking about this first is because it's really important to talk about it. because it really affects a lot of the other topics that we're going to cover here. This basically measures the liquidity in dollars that our economy has. Now, liquidity just basically means dollars that can actually be spent or easily converted to cash to be spent. It's money that's actually being used in the economy. So a great example of this that I'm going to go back to is if you take money to a grocery store, like you take $20 cash and you go buy things because you need to get all that toilet paper before it runs out of stock. That is an example of currency in circulation because it is being circulated from one person to another to another. The opposite of this is like what people are doing when they buy homes or buy stocks and they don't plan on selling those investments for 20, 30, 40 years. That is no longer in circulation because they park that money in a stock or in a home. Now let's talk about exactly what goes into money supply in terms of liquidity. And the first thing we're going to talk about is M0. Doesn't say Mo, it's not Mo money, Mo problem, it's M0, and that basically is just the actual physical currency that is in circulation. So the amounts of dollars and coins that are actually circulating to buy goods and services. Like I said, you go to a grocery store, you take $20, you give it to the cashier, she puts it in her cash register, and then she takes it out of the cash register and gives it to someone as change. That circulation of that currency is considered M0 currency. After M0, we have M1. They are so good at these names, I'll tell you what. M1 currency is all of that currency plus checking accounts. Basically money that is going to be used, whether through debit cards or going to a bank and taking it out in the circulation of money. Basically how M0 currency and M1 currency differ, just as a practical example, is you go to that grocery store, you give the cashier $20, but she doesn't give it out this time and put it back into circulation. Instead, at the end of the night, she's reconciling her drawer, she takes it to the back office, that $20 goes into a shipment that's going to be taken by an armored carrier to a bank and then put into that store's checking account. Basically, if that hasn't changed since I worked in a supermarket 6 years ago, that's how that currency is going to go from in circulation to in a checking account, but it's still very liquid, so it's considered in the measure of money supply. After M1, we have another super great name, M2, which basically includes M1, which includes M0, plus all savings accounts and CDs. Now, these are a little bit longer term than a checking account to quote unquote get your money, but it's still very liquid because these get converted into cash very easily. So savings accounts, you have up to 6 withdrawals per month out of your savings account. So basically you could take all of it out in one fell swoop. And CDs are cash equivalents, but they do have a little bit longer that they need to get locked up for because normally they have anywhere from 6 months to 10-year maturity dates. So let's say instead of you going to the grocery store and stocking up on your 14th pack of toilet paper, you took that $20 and put it in a savings account. That's an example of where M0 currency gets converted into M2 currency. Also, you don't need 14 things of toilet paper. That's a little ridiculous. Now, the last measure of money supply that we're going to talk about is called MZM. Now, this one actually makes a lot of sense. It means money zero maturity. This means exactly what you would think it means. It means money that is not tied to any contingent maturity date. You don't have to wait any time to get it out. The difference between MZM and M2 is that CDs aren't included anymore, and it also includes money market funds. MMF is what I'm going to call them. Those differ a little bit from money market accounts, which are just like a savings account as they are federally insured at a bank. But it includes money market accounts, doesn't include CDs, and this is what the Fed uses really to measure where we are going in terms of inflation. However, it used to be a much more important factor like I'll talk about now. So money supply used to be the main way that economists looked at what the inflation rate was going to be. They would see that as the money supply was increasing, that inflation would be going up, so basically your purchasing power goes down. But come the early 2000s, that stopped being a reliable metric. They saw that after the dot-com crash, people would still park their money in securities like stocks and bonds instead of having cash, and so that really became less of a reliable metric for where inflation was going. They still used the MZM, the money zero maturity, in conjunction with lots of other economic factors to determine whether we are going in an inflationary rate or a deflationary or a stagflation, whatever it is. They use that as one of the measures, but not the only one anymore. If you're interested, the M1 and M2 are posted weekly and monthly by the Federal Reserve. Now, the last posting was March 2nd, 2020. M1 was $4.05 trillion, so that's all the money that is in circulation plus checking accounts. And M2 was $15.62 trillion, which basically means that there's an extra $11.5 trillion sitting in savings accounts and CDs. Although money supply has taken a more accompanying role in terms of modeling the overall economy, It's still used by the Fed when it thinks about stimulating the economy or trying to pull back from inflation. In theory, increasing the money supply will stimulate the economy, while decreasing the money supply will keep us away from inflation. If you want to know more about that, click here to watch my video on quantitative easing, which is something that the Fed is doing right now to try to stimulate the economy instead of us going into a recession, and it's a little bit scary.